We'd encourage you to check out our Facebook page for any announcements or upcoming events. You can also follow us on Instagram. We are live streaming the message each week, which is uploaded to YouTube that you can share with your friends and watch from anywhere at any time. You can give of your tithes and offerings at crosscurrent.org. If you click on the More tab, there you will see the giving option. You can also text an amount to 703 972 1748.
Good morning, Cross Current Church, and welcome back for another Sunday service here online. My name is Jessica Klotwijk, and I'm the Director of Women's Ministry here at Cross Current Church. We're going to have a special time of worship together, and then we'll hear from Pastor Fraser as we continue our series called Mastermind.
Shine. There's a calm that covers me when I kneel down at your feet. It's a place of healing. It's a place where I find freedom. There's a place my eyes can't see, where my spirit longs to be. It's a place of healing. It's a place I'll live in freedom. I'm gonna lift my hands till I can reach heaven. I'm gonna shout your name till the walls come falling down. I've come to worship. I've come to worship. There's a love that lives in me for you, Lord, my Savior King, who breaks a sin that's binding and leads me to a place of freedom. Till the walls come falling down, I've come to worship. I've come to worship. I'm gonna sing my song like I am unashamed. I'm gonna shout for joy at the mention of your name. I've come to worship. I've come to worship. There's no one that can bring me peace, that can wash me clean like you, Lord. There's nothing in this world that can free me. You save my soul. I'm gonna lift my till I can reach heaven. I'm gonna shout your name till the walls come falling down. I've come to worship. I've come to worship. I'm gonna sing my song like I am unashamed. I'm gonna shout for joy at the mention of I've come to worship. I've come to worship. There's no one who can bring me peace, that can wash me clean like you, Lord. There's nothing in this world that can free me. You save my soul. I'm gonna lift my hands till I can reach heaven. I'm gonna shout your name till the walls come falling down. I've come to worship. I've come to worship. I'm gonna sing my song like I am unashamed. I'm gonna shout for joy at the mention of your name. I've come to worship. I've come to worship.
Hello. Good evening. Welcome to Cross Current. My name is Fraser. I'm the senior pastor. I'm glad that you're here, and hello to everyone watching online. If this is your first time, thank you for coming and seeing what God is doing at Cross Current Church. We are in this series of teaching that we're called Mastermind. Change your thinking, change your life. If you want to be able to take notes and you happen to have a smartphone and you have the YouVersion Bible app already on your phone, all of our notes for this talk is on there. So you can pull up the Bible app, go to More and Events, and then you'll see Cross Current Church, and you can just type it all in. And if I'm really boring, you can look like you're typing it in when you're actually playing a game. In this series, what we've really been talking about is about how to get your mind in the right place. And the best place that your mind can ever be is in agreement with God. And so the more that you can get your mind where you begin to think like God thinks and begin to see things the way that God sees them, the better your life's going to be. And the process of seeing things rightly, that's basically what wisdom is. You say, well, what is it to be wise? What is it to have wisdom? To have wisdom is to think like God thinks and to see the world the way that God sees it. And so we're not born that naturally thinking those things. We're actually born with what we've been discussing, this idea called the sinful nature, that our minds are actually against God and they have to be redeemed and brought into line. Now, when you change your mind, when you stop looking at things a certain way and change that mind and see them the way that God sees them, that change of mind, that is what is called repentance. It's actually the Greek word in the Bible, metanoia, which means to change your mind. And so repentance literally just means to stop thinking a certain way and shift that thinking towards God's thinking. And in this series so far, we've talked about changing your mind about how you see yourself. We've talked about changing your mind about who you see God to be. We've talked about changing your mind on love and changing your mind on what is sin. Last week, Pastor Chris talked about changing your thoughts when it comes to discouragement. So tonight, we've actually now only 2 weeks left of this series. We've got tonight and then next week. And tonight, what I want us to do is I want to talk about how you need to change the way you think about pain. About pain. One of the most perplexing questions that people ask is, why is there pain in the world? Why is there pain and why is there suffering? And why would a good God allow there to be so much pain in the world? Sometimes I talk to people who are not yet Christians and they sort of think like they're the first people to ever have thought of that question. You know, like, I got one for you, right? Bet you never thought of this one. If God is so good, why does he allow suffering in the world? Friends, everybody has been asking that question since the beginning of time, including faithful people in the Bible. Let me show you this, some verses from the Bible, from the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 2, verse 22. And Ecclesiastes is from a portion of the Old Testament in the Bible, also known as the wisdom section. So we're talking about being wise, and here in the wisdom section, the writer says this. So what do people get for all of their hard work and struggles here on earth? Their entire life is filled with pain, and their work is unbearable. Even at night, their minds don't rest. It all seems so pointless. That verse was written thousands of years ago, like 4,000 years ago. And I'm reading that, I'm like, that's the most relevant text. That is a relevant text for today. Now, do you notice here, there's a phrase that says, their entire life is filled with pain. Entire lives filled with pain. That actually sums up most of the world. I mean, I don't have to labor the point, but here we are in Ashburn, Virginia, Loudoun County, Virginia, the wealthiest county in America. Like, we talk about the 1%. Like, we are the 1%. We are the richest people that have ever lived in the history of humanity. You and me, on a relative scale. I've traveled all over the world. I've been in 6 continents of the world. I've lived and worked all over the world. And I can tell you that the experience of the majority of the world is a lot of pain and a lot of suffering. The majority of the world gets up every day and has to go look for food. The majority of the world has to scrap and to fight, to survive, to get shelter, to be safe, to protect themselves bodily, soul, and mind. That's what most people have experienced. And the writer here is like, what's the point? Just get up, find some food, survive another day, make it through. Now, a lot of scientific studies have demonstrated that humans can actually put up with an extraordinary amount of pain as long as they feel that there is a good purpose for that pain. In other words, as long as a person can see that their pain might be productive, that it might be purposeful, that there might be a point to it, humans are actually incredibly capable of surviving pain. But it's the pain without purpose that is the problem. It's the pain without meaning. It's the inability to see something deeper in our circumstances that is utterly unbearable. And so, what I want to look at tonight is there purpose to pain? How can we reap any benefit from the inevitable pain that life will throw at us? Now listen, if you are of the misguided notion that you're supposed to have a life free of pain, free of suffering, free of trials of any kind, sorry, but let me just take that misguided notion from you. If you think that you are entitled and deserving of an entire life without suffering, I don't know where you've been. I don't know who brought you up. I don't know what education you had. But that's not real. And if you've listened to preachers and churches tell you that that's how your life's going to be if you follow Jesus, run away from those preachers. You know, Jesus himself, he said, in this world you will have trouble. But be of good cheer, I have prayed for you that you might overcome. Like, we're going to have problems. You've already had many, and there are more to come. So I want to talk tonight about how we can get something good out of it. How we don't waste the inevitable pain that we've gone through. Now, pain will be put up with if there's a good reason. I see there's a lot of kids and young people here, which means there's a lot of moms here. And moms go through this incredibly painful thing called childbirth. But they do it because it brings forth life. And then they do it again, like a second time, and a third time, and sometimes more. Because they will put up with that pain. They will survive that pain, and they'll embrace that pain a second and third time because there is purpose to that pain. But I bet if I was to ask any mom here tonight, would you like to go through that same pain for no purpose? What would you say to that? No. Of course not. You see, it's the purpose that gets us through. So what kind of purpose could there be to pain? Turns out there's actually 5 of them. There are 5 purposes to pain. We're going to look at those tonight. Let's begin with this verse in Romans chapter 8 and verse 28. It's one of my favorite verses. I regularly go to my Bible just to check it's still there. But in Romans 8, verse 28, a famous Christian verse says this: we know. Now notice it doesn't say we guess. It doesn't say we hope. It says we know. We know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him and who have been called according to his purpose. Now, let's just camp on this verse for a minute or two. It says, we know that in all things God works for the good. It doesn't say that all things are good. Obviously, there's a lot of things in the world that are not good. Everything that happens in your life is not good. You don't have to pretend like it is. I think sometimes Christian people feel like we're under some kind of compulsion or expectation to try and put a spin on everything. And it's like, yeah, half my leg fell off, but it's all good. It's not. That's not good. We don't have to put a spin on things. There are some things in life that are really terrible, really bad, and it's okay. It's okay as a person of faith to say, this sucks. I hate this. This hurts. So it doesn't say that all things are good. It says that we know that in all things, and what does that include? All things. And so what that tells me is that even includes your stupid mistakes. That even includes your sin. That even includes that one secret thing you hope nobody ever finds out. It says that in all things, whether it was done by you, to you, towards you, in all things, God can work to good. Now, I want you to notice, though, that this promise is not for everybody. This promise is not for everybody on the planet. This promise, it says, is for those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. So if that's you here tonight, if you know that you have placed your life in the hands of Jesus Christ, if He is your Lord and Savior, if you are a Christian person, you follow Jesus, then you can know with confidence that you're included in this, that you are those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. And you can believe this promise that no matter what you go through, as painful as it is at the moment, that God promises that in all things He will work something good out of it. But here's what I need you to understand. It is not automatic. It is not automatic. Now, what else is this verse teaching us? It's telling us that pain can be managed by purpose. By purpose, on purpose, and for a purpose. That pain can be managed for purpose. Now, most people know, or most Christians believe that God has purpose, but I don't think they all understand that you can profit from your problems. Most of us, we face our problems like the ostrich sticking its head in the sand. Just pretend it's not there, ignore it, or just dig down deep until it all goes away. Most of us, our attitude towards problems is just hang on tight until it's over. But I want to tell you, that's a waste. That's a waste of pain. Because God says that in all things He works to good. So if you're going to have to be in pain because your spouse has died, because your father's died, if you're going to be in pain because you've been laid off your job, or because you've been given a diagnosis, if you're going to be in pain anyway, you might as well profit from it. Rather than just hanging on and waiting till it goes away. Now, God doesn't have to create pain. There's plenty of pain in the world already. But look what the Apostle Paul says here in Galatians chapter 3. In Galatians chapter 3 and verse 4, Paul says to the people in the church in Galatia, that's a city in Greece, he says this, "Have you gone through all of this for nothing?" Is it all really for nothing? In other words, have you wasted the pain in your life? I want to tell you, that's a question that I have had to ask myself. That's a question that I've, particularly in the last year or two, had to ask myself. Have I wasted the pain of my life? Or am I accepting of what has happened and looking to do something good out of it? Because I can tell you as a pastor that I've met with people and counseled with people who have the same problem for 25 years. And they can't get over things that have happened in the past, and they can't forgive people. They can't forgive themselves, and it still eats away at them, and it still is in their mind when they lay down at night. Why? Why waste that pain? Let's profit from our pain. Let's get a message out of our mess. Let's get a testimony out of our trial. Let's turn it to good. So let's look at 5 things. You ready? If you're taking notes, write these down. The first purpose of pain, number 1, is that you can use your pain to draw you closer to God and to trust Him more. Do you remember I said it's not automatic? It's not automatic that when you go through pain that you will draw closer to God, because it seems to me that most people go one of 2 ways. They either use the pain to draw them to God, or they do the exact opposite, which is they curse God and they run the other way. And that one has always kind of baffled me. It's always confused me a little bit. You're in pain, you're in trial, you're in suffering, things have gone wrong, and you run away from the only being that has any power to help. Why run away from the source when we can run towards a God who has the power and the provision to help us? I think more people actually run towards God in pain, including those who have spent most of their lives never giving God much consideration at all. That's why when something terrible happens, people say, "Oh my God," like that. Why? Why do people who've never given God any attention fall to their knees and cry out? Why do people in hospitals by the bed pray to this God they know nothing about and say, "Dear God, I'll make a deal with you. If you'll just get him out of this, if you'll just pull her through, then I'll. What's happening there is that in the midst of pain, it is causing people to draw closer to God. How do you draw closer to God when you're in pain? Well, the first thing you do is you just tell Him how you feel. You tell God exactly how you feel. You say, "God, I'm in pain. God, I'm in pain." It's not like He doesn't know anyway. "God, I'm in pain." That cry out to God. There's actually a word for that. It's called a prayer of lament. A prayer of lament is simply when we just throw our hands in the air and we let out a great sigh and we say, "Oh God, help. Help." You see, if you're going to profit from your pain, you need to learn that you can worship God in all phases of your life. You can worship God. You can pray to God when you are in shock. You can pray to God and unload your sorrow. You can pray to God in your sadness. You can pray to God in your struggle. You can pray to God with any and all of your emotions. There's a book in the Bible with a bunch of songs called the Book of Psalms, and some of those are quite shocking. Some of those are incredible. When you read the way that the writers speak to God, you think, "Wow, I didn't think you could speak to God like that. I didn't know you could yell to God. I didn't know that you could express your anger and frustration." But when you're in pain, God wants you to draw close to Him. The biggest problem that I've seen with people when they're in pain is they do one of 2 things that are wrong. One is that they suppress it. They try to suppress the pain. The second one they do is they try to repress the pain. They try to stuff it down. But they never work. You don't want to suppress pain. You don't want to repress pain. What you want to do is confess pain. You need to get it out verbally. And you do that through prayer. You could do what the Apostle Paul did here in our next verses, 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 8 through 10. He says this, and I want you to know that what he's writing about as we read it is a time in which he was thoroughly depressed. You're like, wait, there's depression in the Bible? Many times, several key characters. But watch what he says here, and you tell me if this doesn't sound like depression. 2 Corinthians 1:8, he says, "We were crushed and overwhelmed. We saw how powerless we were to help ourselves." Crushed and overwhelmed, powerless to help. In fact, because I pulled a couple of verses out, as it goes on, he says, "We even despaired of life itself." Have you ever felt that way? Have you ever been in such significant pain or suffering? And that could be physical pain, that could be emotional pain, psychological pain, it could be spiritual pain. Have you ever been in such anguish that you could say you were crushed and overwhelmed? And then he says this, but that was good. You see, because most of us, we do the ostrich thing. Most of us can never look at any pain and say, that was good. I mean, maybe later, right? Maybe 10 years later, when you can think about what happened and not still feel the sting inside. Years later, you might attempt to say, oh, but it was good. It worked out. Tie a little bow in the end. But here, this is not him in retrospect. This is him saying, it was good. And I'm like, are you crazy? It was good that you were crushed. It was good that you were overwhelmed. It was good that you were powerless. What are you talking about? It reminds me of a quote by the writer C.S. Lewis when he says, God whispers to us in our pleasure, but he shouts at us in our pain. Thousands of people's lives, they've come to know Jesus Christ out of pain. Thousands of people's lives have been transformed out of the process of learning to worship God in the midst of their pain. Elsewhere, the Bible says that God is close to the brokenhearted. God is actually never closer to you than when you are in pain. The thing is that when you're in pain, it dulls your senses to everything else. And so when you're in pain, your natural thought is that God is not close. But the Bible promises us that he is closest to the brokenhearted. But we profit from it when we pray. We profit from it when we praise. That's the first purpose, is that it's used to draw you closer. Paul goes on in chapter 7, verse 19, and he says this. He says, I am glad, not because it hurt you, but because the pain turned you to God. And that's the first thing it can do. So friends, don't waste your pain. Let it turn you to God. Spend longer times reading the Bible. Spend longer times praying. Spend longer times singing worship songs to God. And pain will draw you closer to him. Number 2, here's the second purpose of pain. It is to use pain to draw closer to others. In fellowship. The Bible calls this fellowship or belonging. If you will allow it, if you will be honest about the things that cause you pain, then that honesty will mature your love. And it will mature your relationships. And it will mature your sense of community. But here's what happens is you put a small group of people together. Let's say from church. We get a little group of people from church and we say, hey, let's meet in this guy's house on Wednesday nights and we'll call it a small group. And we all sit and we look at each other, and here's what we're all thinking. You go first. You go first. It's like the group will only ever exist at a certain level until somebody goes first. And when somebody finally has the courage to be the one to go first and to just say, you know what, let me tell you the real truth. Let me tell you what I've really gone through. Let me tell you what I'm really facing. Let me tell you what is hurting me. And then it's like it cracks the surface. And other people are like, oh, thank goodness, I'm not the only one. Me too. Oh, you too? Me 3. Me 4. And what happens is, look, if you've been in Cross Current for a while, you've heard me explain this before. There are 4 levels of fellowship. There are 4 levels. The first level, this top level, is what I'd call sharing together. And that's when Christians get together and they say, oh, hey, how was your weekend? Oh, it was pretty good, did this and did that. And, and how's your kids? Oh, playing sports. And that's the top level. It's very basic, just sharing together. If you want to go a little deeper in relationships, you go down one more level. I'll call that studying together. And that's what most church small groups do. They get together and they say, we're going to read the Bible, study the Bible, or we buy some curriculum. And so we'll open it up and we'll say, oh, how do you think this verse applies to our lives today? And what do you think the writer meant when he said this? So what happens is you study God's word, it brings you a little bit closer. There's a third level that goes deeper than just sharing and studying. It's serving together. That's when your group says, you know what, it's not all about us just getting together and, having tea and cake and studying the Bible. Let's do something. Let's do a project. Let's help someone financially. Let's gather some resources and go serve somewhere. And you'll find that when you serve alongside your brothers and sisters, that it just brings a closeness and a camaraderie. And those three things are all great, and we should do all of those things. But if you really want to build relationship, you got to go level 4, and it's deeper. And it's not just sharing or studying or serving, it's suffering. Suffering together. When you can suffer together, when someone in your group is going through a devastating experience, when someone in your group is dying from a diagnosis, when someone in your group is getting divorced, when someone in your group is in deep anguish, and you show up for one another, when you're there at their home, when you're visiting them in hospital, when you're cooking them meals, when you're just sitting in their presence, that's what builds relationship. See, there is purpose in pain. So many people, especially in this area, are incredibly lonely. When people come looking at a church, they're not just looking for a friendly church, they're looking for friends. It's remarkable, this town called Ashburn, it's like hardly anyone's from here. I'm not from here, you probably guessed that. I came here from Scotland, that's my accent if you're new. Not Irish. You get one pass with that. One. If you say English, you get no pass whatsoever. Get out of here. But Scottish. And I moved here, and I'm like, hey, meet people at Starbucks. Hey, are you from here? Oh, no, I'm not from here. I'm like, is anyone from here? Nobody's from here. And what that means is people have moved here, and what that means is their family's not here. They don't have their parents and grandparents here. They don't have their siblings here. And this is an incredibly lonely town. And you don't go deeper by saying, oh, how was your weekend? You want to build relationship? You show up at times when people are in great pain. Galatians chapter 6 and verse 2 says this, by helping each other with your troubles, you truly obey the law of Christ. What is the law of Christ? Love your neighbor as yourself. How do you obey that law? By sharing in people's troubles. A joy shared is a joy doubled. A trouble shared is a trouble halved. This is the law of Christ. So let's review. The first two purposes of pain are to draw us closer to God and to draw us closer to one another. The third purpose of pain, number 3, is to grow us deeper like Jesus, deeper in our character. The Bible calls this discipleship, when you become more mature as a person. And every time you are in pain, it is an opportunity. Remember I said it's not automatic, but it's an opportunity for you to work on your attitude, to work on your virtue, to work on your character. The Bible talks about these 9 things called the fruit of the Spirit. The fruit of the Spirit is Galatians 5. It's love, joy, peace, patience. The other ones, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. Is that 9? I need an 8th grader to come and teach us. The fruit of the Spirit. And the Bible says these are the characters of maturity that the Holy Spirit will produce in your life. The question is, how does the Holy Spirit produce these things in your life? How do you become more loving and more patient and more peaceful and more full of self-control? Well, the thing is, the way that you produce them is he puts you in the exact opposite situations. You become more loving by being around unlovely people. Welcome to church. You become more patient by the Holy Spirit putting you in impatient situations. He teaches you joy in the middle of grief. He teaches you self-control in situations where you're tempted not to have self-control. You see the purpose in pain. Pain is there to build your character. And sometimes when you're in pain, look, only one of two things will happen. That's why I say it's your choice. You'll either become bitter or better. That's it. You'll either become bitter or better. Because pain never leaves you where it finds you. You'll never come out of it exactly the same. And if you do not profit from it, you'll come out bitter and twisted and full of resentment, and you'll have a bad back, and you'll have an ulcer, and you'll have migraines. Because your body keeps the score, you know that, right? Proverbs chapter 20 and verse 30 says this: sometimes it takes a painful experience to make us change our ways. Does anyone want to come and give a testimony on that verse? This could be the verse of my life. Man, we're so dumb. We're so stupid. It'll be fine, it'll be fine, it'll be fine. And it's like, I feel like God sometimes gives us enough chances to sort something out. And when we don't take those chances, eventually he's like, okay, I love you enough that I'm going to smack you around the head. I love you enough to put the smack down on you. I love you enough to let you get caught. I love you enough to let them find out. I love you enough. Because sometimes it takes a painful experience before you will change. I've said this 1,000 times. People don't change when they see the light. They change when they feel the heat. Most of us say, well, if they just had a revelation, if they just could see it, they would change. No, you already know the changes that you need to make, but you won't make them. You have seen all the light that you need to see. Me too. But sometimes we don't change when we see the light. We need the heat to come before we'll change. We're fortunate that we have a Father that loves us enough to let that happen. You say, but preacher, I thought God loves us the way that we are. God does love you the way you are, but he loves you way too much to leave you that way. And if there's any purpose to life whatsoever, it is that God wants to make you more like his son, Jesus. That's the whole purpose of all of this, is that God is making a forever family, an eternal family from every nation, tribe, and tongue that will live with him forever. First on heaven and then on a newly created earth. That's the point of all of this. Like father, like son. Like father, like daughter. God is trying to transform you to be more like him. But here's like the sort of corollary to that, which is that if Jesus experiences pain, then so will you. Because if God did not spare his only son, if God did not spare Jesus from pain, why would he spare me? And then you look at Jesus' life and you think, what did he go through? Was Jesus ever discouraged? Yeah. Just like you. Was Jesus ever mistreated? Absolutely. Just like you are sometimes. Was he misunderstood and did people criticize him? Did people even call him names? Yeah, just the same as you. So if God's going to make you more like Jesus, you're going to have to go through some of the things that Jesus went through as well. Look what it says in Hebrews chapter 5 And verse 8 in the Bible, it says, so even though Jesus was God's son, he learned obedience. And how did he do it? Look at that. From the things that he suffered. Even though he was God's son, he still had to learn, it says, and he learned obedience through suffering. Friends, there is purpose to pain. And then it goes on the next verse, verse 9, Hebrews 5, 8, then 9 says this, that suffering made Jesus perfect. And so now he can save forever those who will obey him. I was like, what does that mean? Like, I'm the same as you. I read stuff in the Bible, and then I'm like, what? Say what now? Jesus was perfect. He was made perfect through suffering. I mean, I'm a Christian. I believe Jesus was perfect. But it says he was made perfect through suffering. I'm like, I'm confused. So I looked it up. The word suffering, the Greek word is teleos, and it actually means complete. So in the sense of when it says perfect, it doesn't mean like perfection in the moral sense. It means that it was completed. You know, like you understand that it was perfect and that it was whole and complete. So what he's saying is Jesus learned obedience through suffering and that he was made whole, that he was made complete. Maybe I could put the Fraser Murdoch translation version on it and say he was rounded off. I know it's probably a blasphemy or something. But do you understand what I'm trying to get at? That he was, yeah, I better not. I could probably get myself into theological trouble. He learned through suffering and he was made complete through that. The Apostle Paul, in this next portion we're going to read together, he writes this letter in which he's complimenting the Corinthian church. That's another church in the city of Corinth. And he's complimenting them because they'd actually grown through their pain. What's this? It's 2 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 11. For this one, I'm just going to read from the Message. This is a paraphrase version of the Bible. It's not a word-for-word translation. It's a modern paraphrase, but it sometimes helps give you a little color. I wouldn't use the Message for Bible study, but for a little extrapolation. Let's see what it says here in verse 11. Paul says, now, isn't it wonderful all the ways in which this distress has goaded you closer to God? There you go. That was point number one. How it has pulled him closer to God. He says, look, you're more alive. Let's count these things off. You're more alive, more concerned, more sensitive, more reverent, more human, more passionate, more responsible. That's 7 things. What a surprise. He says, looked at from any angle, you've come out of this with a purity of heart. Friends, do you want any of these things for your life? Do you want to say, I'm more alive than I was. I'm more concerned about other people. I'm much more sensitive. That's another thing that pain will do. We'll talk about in a second. And that you're more human, he says. Well, how do you get these things? By profiting from your problems. By gaining from your pain. By learning something. No matter what happens to you. For years, I've had this interest in trying to figure out what is it that makes great people great. I've been asking people about sports stars. Had a conversation about Michael Jordan, about Tiger Woods, about Tom Brady, about Lionel Messi. You know, and I was asking people, like, were they just always great? Like, even when they were 12, were people like, Michael Jordan, 12 years old, he's going to be the greatest of all time? Tom Brady. No, Tom Brady was drafted number, 50 or something. Whatever it was. So what was it? 6th round draft. I don't even know what that means. But I know he wasn't the first pick. You look at business people. Some of the greatest, wealthiest business people didn't even go to school. College. Didn't even go to college. great military leaders. I'm like, what is it that makes people great? Because most of us fall into this trap of thinking, well, they were just born great. Or they were just, they were just made to be great, and I wasn't. Boo-hoo for me. And so for years, I've been trying to study what makes people great. And from a lot of reading and talking with a lot of people, and a lot of thought about it, I really think it's come down to just one thing. There's one thing that makes all the great people great. And it's resilience. It's resilience. It's their ability to bounce back. Because what you learn from every one of these people is that every one of them stumbled. Every one of them had a fall. Every one of them had failures. Abraham Lincoln tried to get elected in various offices unsuccessfully. Long before he became president. People are just the same. They're just like you and they're just like me. The difference is great people get back up. They bounce back and they keep going no matter what they face. It's like in the book of Proverbs, it says that though a righteous man may fall 7 times, he gets back up again. My favorite childhood toy, a Weeble. Because Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. Amen. And Christians need to be like Weebles. That's the best sermon line I've ever preached. Christians need to be like Weebles. Because it's not that we don't fall down. It's about getting up and moving forward. Resilience. Resilience. How do you become resilient? Some of you are saying, but I'm not a resilient person. I'm a fearful person. I don't feel like I have that kind of strength. I want us to just briefly revisit a passage that Pastor Chris read last week, 2 Corinthians 4. Verse 16. It's a little bit about discouragement, but notice this on the screen. It says, for this reason, we never become discouraged, that even though our physical being is gradually decaying. You probably noticed that, haven't you? Nobody warned me about what happens as soon as you turn 40. I heard about it, but I was like, not me, though. Not me. Anyway, I'll spare you my list of complaints. Our physical being is gradually decaying, yet our spiritual being is renewed day after day. These temporary troubles that we suffer will bring us a tremendous and eternal glory, much greater than the trouble. What is greater than the trouble? The reward. For we fix our attention not on things that are seen, but on things that are unseen. What can be seen lasts only for a time, but what cannot be seen lasts forever. And then he goes on. I don't think it's on the screen, but let me just quickly read you what else he says. He says, I've lived with weariness, I've lived with pain, I've lived with sleepless nights, I've been hungry and thirsty, I've gone without food, I've shivered with cold, through not enough clothing to keep me warm. And besides all, I've had the daily burden of all the churches that I've started. This passage, Paul starts listing all the kinds of troubles that he's had. And then we get down to 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 8. Again, let me just read it to you. And I want you to think about how hard your life has been and compare it to this. He says, we're pressed on every side by trouble. When it just comes... He says, when it just comes pressing in on us, but we're not crushed, we're not broken. We're perplexed, but we don't give up. And we don't quit. And so, although we're often confused about life, we don't give up. And then he goes on, we've been hunted down, but we're never abandoned. We got knocked down, but we get up again and keep going. It's like a boxer, right? We get knocked down, but we're not knocked out. He says we get up and we go again through our suffering. And then he says these bodies of ours are constantly sharing in the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be seen in our bodies. And this is better than I remembered. I should have put this up on the screen. I'm just going to keep reading. This is good. Verse 16, he says, for this reason, we are never discouraged. You know what this is all about? This is about the power of growing in Christ in your pain. And what Chris pointed out last week is a part of the key to this is getting a greater perspective. The perspective could be something like this, that even if I had pain the entirety of my life, 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, 80 years, that even if I had pain all that time, he says it is still momentary. Because we don't fix our eyes on what's temporary. He says we fix our eyes on the unseen, which is eternal. And that in the future, that future kingdom, all that suffering will seem like nothing. That the rewards of heaven are so much greater than the pain of earth. You see, friends, pain has a purpose. It draws us closer to God. It draws us closer to one another. It makes us more mature. Number 4, the fourth purpose of pain is that it can make us more sensitive in serving other people. That's the fourth purpose of pain. Because you are not on this planet just to consume. You're here to contribute. You're here to have a ministry of service. You weren't put on earth just to work and save and retire and die. You are here to make a contribution. And so because you're going to face trials and temptations through life, you might as well turn them and help somebody with them. Now, in theological terms, this is called redemptive suffering. It is taking your suffering and redeeming it towards something that is positive. And earlier we read that Paul said it's made you more sensitive. So listen to me, everyone listen, because I don't want anyone to feel that this does not include you. Listen to me, listen. If you have ever battled with depression, who better to help someone else who's going through depression than you, who's been there, who's faced it, who's struggled with it, who knows how it feels. If you have been divorced, who better to help someone who's going through a divorce than a person who's survived going through a divorce? If you are a struggling veteran, who better to go help a struggling veteran than you? If you have a special needs child, who better to help someone who has a special needs child than you? This is how you redeem your pain. You don't just say, oh, this terrible thing happened to me when I was a child. No. You say, yes, it happened. Yes, it was painful, but I'm going to turn it into something good. And I'm going to help somebody else. You know what that does? That pokes a finger in the eye of the devil. You thought you were just going to cause me pain. You thought you were just going to take me down all my life. Well, take that poke in the eye, because I'm going to use this and I'm going to bless somebody. Paul writes these words in Philippians chapter 1 and verse 12. He says, I want you to know, brothers and sisters, that everything that has happened to me. Now, that's all the things I just read. And he lists this like he was shipwrecked and he was beaten. He took the 49 lashes several times. He was stoned. He was hungry. He was thirsty. He was naked. He was persecuted. And he says, I want you to know that all these things that happened to me were good. They were good. They were for purpose. Let me show you this in 2 Corinthians 1 and verse 4. I love this. I love these verses. Watch this. It says, God comforts us in all our troubles so that we can comfort others. Then, when others are troubled, we will be able to give them the same comfort that God has given us. Listen, friend, if you have survived anything, then you're called to help somebody else survive the same thing. It says you can be sure that the more we suffer for Christ, the more God will shower us with his comfort through Christ. So when we are weighed down with troubles, it is for your benefit and salvation. For when God comforts us, it is so that we in turn can be an encouragement to you, and you can patiently endure the same things we suffer. It is so sad when a Christian wastes their pain. People are going to die in your life. People might walk out on your life. You're going to have losses of jobs and incomes at periods. Your health is going to decline. Difficult things will come. Don't waste it. Make something good out of it. Bless someone else. You know, when I share my life with you, like here's what our biggest fear is, that vulnerability. Our biggest fear is, but what if I tell you? What if I sort of strip it all back and let you see the parts that we hide? The secrets of the past, the pain, the current troubles, the temptations, the anxiety. If I was to let you see that, and somehow you reacted badly, somehow you rejected me for that, if somehow I was to tell you and you looked at me strange and said, "Whoa, really?" What am I going to do? Because I've already peeled it back. And so if you can't love the real me, I don't have anything else. And so it's that fear of the vulnerability that causes us to just smile and, "How you doing, brother?" "Fine. Another fine week." But here's the thing. If I was honest with you, if I let you see the greatest weaknesses, I've discovered, and it took me way too long to discover, that when I share my strengths, that doesn't make us feel close. If I was to stand up here and present you with all my certificates and all my trophies and all my bragging, you would go, "Well, goody for you." But when I present my weaknesses, when I speak to you in the struggles that I face just like you do, then that draws us close and you say, "Wow, me too." And if God can bless someone like him, maybe he could bless me too. Which leads us to number 5. The fifth purpose of pain is that it is a witness to the world. God wants to use your pain as a witness to the world. Because you see, that our greatest witness comes out of our weakness, not out of our strength. We've got it all backwards. We think that what people are impressed by is all of our victories. We think people are impressed by our prosperity. But nobody, let me tell you, 1%ers, nobody's impressed by your trophies. Nobody's impressed with your house or your car or your clothes. Nobody is impressed. We might be envious, we might be jealous, but we're not impressed. But what impresses people is how you survived. What impresses us is how you fell down and got back up again. What impresses us is your weaknesses that you've overcome. We think it is success that gives us credibility with people, but actually it is our suffering that gives us credibility. We think that fame earns respect, but actually it is faithfulness that earns respect. Paul says this in Philippians chapter 1 and verse 12. He says, I want you to know, brothers and sisters, that everything that has happened to me has helped spread the good news. His suffering was actually a testimony to non-believers. And do you know where he was writing this letter from? In prison. My goodness. He was in a dungeon in Rome, chained 24 hours to a prison guard. And he says, I want you to know that all that I've been through has been a witness to the good news. Furthermore, in 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 4, he says, in everything that we do, we try to show that we are the true servants of God, for we patiently endure suffering and hardship and trouble of every kind. Patiently enduring shows the world we belong to God. And so what that means is that how we handle pain, and how we handle failure, and how we handle our own personal sin, how we handle defeats, mistakes. Because listen, anybody can handle good stuff. Anybody can handle the good times. It takes the power of God to endure through hard times. And Paul says, in everything we do, we show we are God's servants. And so just like I said, your deepest ministry would come out of your deepest hurt, so too your deepest message comes from your deepest hurt. I'm going to kind of wrap this up, but I want you to hear this. This is the hard part. Every single area of your life where you have had pain, you probably never thought of it like this, but it's true. Every area in your life where you've had pain, you have a testimony. Don't waste it. You say, I have a testimony? Yeah, you do. Look, if you've ever been through bankruptcy, you have a financial testimony. You ever had a marriage conflict? Then you have a marriage testimony. You ever had a rebellious child? Then you have a rebellious child testimony. You ever had a heart attack? Then you got a physical testimony. The key is, don't waste your pain. How do I know this is the greatest purpose of pain? I'll tell you why. Because we're coming up to Easter. And the greatest witness of God's love, the greatest example, the greatest demonstration of God's love, you know what? It's not Jesus' great sermons. The greatest witness of God's love is not Jesus' miracles. The greatest witness of God's love is the suffering that Jesus went through when he was nailed to the cross. When he stretched one arm to the side and one to the other, and he had them nailed in that position so that we would know that he died loving us. It was his witness of suffering is the greatest moment that we hold high. And so if God can use the suffering of Jesus to witness his love to the world, he can use your suffering to do something good as well. I want to pray with you. Let's have the band come and prepare. Can we just pray together for a few moments? You know, you can waste your pain, or you can utilize it. You can become bitter, or you can become better. Maybe there's someone here tonight, you've never considered that what you've gone through, actually, you can still get something good out of it. Well, you can. In fact, you can get 5 good things out of it. You can cry out to God and draw closer to him. You can share it with someone else, draw closer to them. You can use it to mature your character. You can serve someone who's going through the exact thing that you've been through. And if you're honest about what you faced, there's some non-believer out there who needs to hear it. So let's pray together. Just say with me in your heart, say, Heavenly Father, I thank you that no matter what we go through, we don't have to be devastated. Because you said that in all things, you'll work together for the good of those who love you. So just say this. Say, God, help me to use my pain to draw closer to you. Lord, help me to be honest about my pain so that I can build close relationships with other people. And Lord, let's not waste what I've been through. Would you make me more like Jesus? Help me to grow in character, like love and joy and peace and patience. And Lord, again, help me. Is it possible to use the pain in my life to help someone else? To use some of the things that I've been afraid of, perhaps even ashamed of, that I could turn it and help someone? And finally, Lord, I want to be a witness through my weakness. I pray that if I suffer well, that some non-believer would see it and wonder how and what the difference is. Use my life, Lord, that I may profit from my pain. And I pray these things humbly in Jesus' name. Amen.
Nothing good in me. You are love on display for all to see. You are light when the darkness closes in. You are hope, you have covered all my sin. You are peace when my fear is crippling. You are true, even in my wandering. You are joy, you're the reason that I sing. You are life, in you death has lost its sting. Oh, I'm running to your arms, I'm running to your arms. The riches of your love will always be enough. Nothing compares to your embrace. Light of the world, forever reign. You are more than my words will ever say. You are Lord, all creation will proclaim. You are here, in your presence I'm made whole. You will always be enough. Nothing compares to your embrace. Light of the world, forever reign. My heart will sing no other name. Jesus, Jesus. My heart will sing no other name. Jesus, Jesus. My heart will sing no other name. Jesus, Jesus. My heart will sing no other name. Jesus, Jesus. Oh, I'm running to your arms. I'm running to your arms. The riches of your love will always be enough. Nothing compares to your embrace. Light of the world, forever reign. I'm running to your arms. I'm running to your arms. The riches of your love will always be enough. Nothing compares to your embrace. Light of the world, forever reign.
Thank you for being part of our service today this Sunday morning. We're hopeful that you can join us in person soon. We're meeting on Saturday evenings at 6 p.m. To reserve your seat, go to www.crosscurrent.org. We'll see you there or back here online next week.
The Lord bless you and keep you. Make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn